What is going on? Welcome back to Jiu-Jitsu Outlet. I'm sitting down with a purple belt in Jiu-Jitsu, the host of the Mayn Idea podcast, Abe Maynard. What is up, brother? Thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely, Paul, man. I'm stoked. It's really fun being on the other side of this, and I'm excited for the conversation, brother.
Dude, well, I want to dive right into it, and I'm going to start off by asking you the same question we start off every interview with, which is just how has training in Jiu-Jitsu and the martial arts helped your mental health?
Well, I guess I'll start by saying I don't think I'm historically someone who's struggled, quote, with mental health problems, but having grown up as an athlete, so when I was younger, I skied competitively for 12 years in Colorado, and when you compete as an athlete when you're young, if you excel, it's very easy to develop an ego about yourself. I think it naturally just kind of happens as a result of experiencing success when you're younger. And growing up, I was always strength training, conditioning. I was doing things off of the pitch, off of the hill to get me ready for sport constantly. So through my late teens and early 20s, admittedly, I started to develop this idea in my head that maybe I was like stronger, more athletic than I really was, right? And nothing in my life has ever checked me harder than jujitsu checked me. And I went into Fabricio Werdum's training facility called Werdum Combat
Ooh,
in Venice Beach, California, where I was living, off a Groupon. So it was $50 unlimited classes for the month. And I'd always wanted to do jujitsu. I'd been a huge fan of the UFC growing up. I
right,
idolized martial artists, but it was always conflicting seasons with sport, and it was too risky to do something like martial arts and get hurt and then not be able to ski.
right.
So I went in there, and I must have just had, I thought more about myself. And the guy at the end, I'll never forget this dude. His name is Lalo. I think he's their black belt now. He's about like 5'5", and he goes, "Hey man, you're pretty athletic. Do you want to stick around and spar?" And in my head, I was like, sure, this will be great. And I just thought, I was like, I'm athletic. This will be, you know, something simple to do.
Piece of cake.
I got fucking demolished, dude, for 20 minutes straight. Just tap, 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 tap. And he's like, do anything you want, anything you want. Just try to submit me. And that moment of realizing how little I knew about the world in actuality when it comes to altercation, combat, fighting anything, that was really impactful on my mental. And it just checked me in the moment. It checked me in my life. It made me realize how much I didn't know. And it made me like instantaneously have so much respect for anyone that's dedicated their life to this kind of thing. And it made me curious. And I think
Yeah.
that having curiosity in life about anything that interests you is a really good way to stay in a positive mental spot. So that's kind of the way that jujitsu really had an impact on me and made me curious and excited and humbled about trying to just at a baseline learn more about whatever this is that we're doing.
I love it, man. It's like it became an allegory for all of life in a sense, where
Totally.
it awakened you to this idea that, hey, I don't know shit. I mean, this is what Socrates talked about. Like, if you understand what Socrates was really saying, I forget the exact quote, but the paraphrase is he said, the only thing I know is that I know nothing. And
Yeah.
if you think about it, man, like I just keep going back to that in my own journey. I was just talking about it on the last podcast I did, how like you got to always stay a white belt in life, whether it's jujitsu,
Hmm.
business, spirituality, like any of these different disciplines. Like there's no mastery in any of them. Like there is
Totally.
mastery, but the journey's never done. Like you never win jujitsu, you never win business, you never win your relationships, for example. Like you got to always stay humble. And man, that's so beautiful how you said that.
Well, and then anytime you think that you are figuring that out, you get checked again.
Yeah,
And I feel like anytime that I'm like, oh, I think I'm making progress here. I'm like figuring that out. It's like, no, you're not.
yeah,
Like, sit back down, back to white belt stats, and you're like, okay, right. There's something to
yeah.
learn here. There's something that I'm not seeing, or I think in that way, jujitsu is such a beautiful thing because I mean, it's almost like I try not to make jujitsu overly deep, but I do think there are a lot of parallels to life that
Yeah.
it does just keep you kind of even keel, man. Like you meet people that have been doing this for a long time and they have this, there's just an energy about them that's very stoic.
Yeah. Very calm, very
Yep.
relaxed. I found jiu-jitsu guys take their time in life a lot of times. Like we have a very relaxed pace that we go through things sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think it can frustrate other people who are
Totally.
wanting us to
I
move
mean,
faster.
I think about this daily with things like, and I'm sure that you share a lot of this with things like the podcast, right? So starting a podcast from nothing without some pre-existing audience from celebrity success or having a business that you launched and sold or something like that, but really just starting it from like the seed point. It is very much like walking into the jiu-jitsu academy for your first time, because you want more than you actually deserve, and
Right.
you want more than you've put in time to respect and understand. So like you want a big audience, you want that millions of people listening, you want things being shared and liked and moved around. And the thing is that you have to go through the belts. Like you got to just keep showing up, and most of the
Right.
time you're going to get your shit kicked in, but it's the unwillingness to quit, like the desire to just keep going, keep doing another episode, keep reaching out to someone, hear no for the 500th time, get blown off by another guest who said that they would be on, whatever those things are. Those are just like the stripes. And so there are so many parallels to other aspects in life where I feel like you can lean on a lot of the lessons that you pick up passively when you're on the mats, and you can apply them to other, like you said, maybe it's relationships, maybe it's uh, being more present for someone in your family. Like there's just a lot of things that you can learn and then apply from the lessons that you learn by just showing up over and over and over and over again.
It's true. It's the discipline. The discipline is its own lesson in a sense.
Yes.
And man, so I want to segue into this. I think we're already pretty much there, but how has jujitsu helped your life off the mats? Like since you started training, what have you noticed about the other areas of your life, and like how have those areas improved or not improved, I guess could be another way.
It's it's taught me that it's taught me to be patient first and foremost. And that I think that's a really important thing for me personally, is to be okay. And I struggle with this daily. I struggle with this today when I'm on the mats. I just came from training. I struggle with this every single day, is to let let it run its course. Like you go to training and there's going to be some lessons that you're working on, or maybe there's an opponent that kind of has your number lately, and they're passing your guard, or like you keep getting in the same position. Be okay with that. That's all. It's all part of it. Like it's all part of it. You got to get tapped. You got to have good days. You got to have bad days. You got to go in when your neck hurts and go, okay, how am I going to figure this out, instead of just sitting at home with a hurt neck? You got to figure out ways to improve your strength and conditioning so that you can have more days on the mat. Maybe there's some things that you can do to your nutrition or your recovery that'll also give you more days on the mat. But all
Right.
of that is part of this strung along thing that just takes time, period. Like things aren't overnight. You don't get a black belt overnight. And so many things in my life I want right now. And I've always been that way. And
Yep.
I've always thrown hard work and athleticism at them. But the beautiful thing about jujitsu is you can't just throw hard work and athleticism at it. You have to throw time. And that
Yep.
is different than other things. I'm let me backpedal. You could apply that to any other sport, right? If you're a basketball player, a soccer player, a football player, you do have to put in the time as well. The difference is that during the time that you're putting in, you're getting throttled. And that's different. And you're getting your ego stepped on all the time, because people that are smaller than you, quicker than you, bigger than you, shorter than you, they're putting you in a position that's actually outside of the confines of the academy, threatening your life. And that is different than getting tackled or getting boxed out or getting slid tackled or defended. It's just different. And that it forces you to really sit with patience over and
Yeah.
over and over again.
I would argue it's even different than wrestling because I think wrestling can teach you a lot of the same lessons that you can learn from jiu-jitsu, but there's a certain element that comes from the submission side of getting choked
Yeah.
out or getting your arm broken or getting your heel potentially broken. Like there's just another level of danger there. I mean, it's not quite as bad as an MMA fight, and MMA is even more intense, obviously, because you have the added risk of a concussion.
Yeah.
But the jiu-jitsu, it's it's pretty much there. Like you could get seriously hurt if you're not taking this seriously. And something inside, like you said, something in your subconscious mind just knows that you're in this life or death situation. Whereas if the
Yeah.
submissions are removed, it's not quite there as much. It's still there.
Yep.
And like you still learn a lot from the experience for sure. But I think it does something to the subconscious.
I 100% agree. 100%.
I don't know what, because I'm not a neuroscience scientist.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I can't break it down for you on like a scientific level, but that there's I would say a follow up to that, patience being the main thing. But in addition to that, it does impose on your life the opportunity to be creative. And I'm it's kind of weird to say that because a lot of the things in jujitsu are already set. Like there's pretty set things that you want to try to do within a match or a role, and then there's pretty set defenses. But it still allows you to be creative in how you transition those things, but also how you apply time to jujitsu when you're not doing jujitsu. And I think the biggest part of that, at least for me, coming from like a strength and conditioning background as a career, it has made me rethink how I treat my body every other minute that I'm not on the mats, because always came from again, it's like work, 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 and never rest or never regulate work. And with jujitsu, especially being 34, you have to be smart about how you train. And nothing in my life up until jujitsu taught me that. Like really made me respect that you do have to take care of yourself and be creative about how you take care of yourself. And those are like the two most valuable lessons that I got from, and that I still get every single time I go in there. I'm reminded of why those things matter so much.
You're so right, man. Like you gotta be disciplined every other day outside the mats. Like it's not
Yep.
just about when you're at the academy. You got to make sure that first of all you get to the academy, but that you also are taking care of yourself outside of there. And even so, like I feel like it teaches responsibility to a great degree, because if you want to get good at training, you have to become responsible for your own practice. You have to become
100%.
you have to realize that you got to take ownership of it. Like it's on you to study outside of class, or it's on you to dial in your nutrition, or to do your strength and conditioning, or maybe to invest in going to that seminar or whatever it is. But like, I think jujitsu teaches that so well, man. And if you don't learn that lesson, then you're just always going to be on that lower end of the pecking line, and eventually you
Yeah,
might even quit because you're tired of losing. And I think that
totally.
the people who take it seriously, they don't get the same experience, I guess is what I'm saying. Like
And it's cool
I don't know.
because it gives people that might not be thinking about that the opportunity to start thinking about it. Like you could be someone who's, maybe you work an office job and the only time that you're able to get in and train with family and friends and everything is in the evening. And so that's your fitness or your activity for the week. The thing that you do that's active is you go to jiu-jitsu 2 times a week and you go in the evening class, and it's all that you can muster. But it's possible that just by doing that and seeing other people that are talking about what they do to keep their body healthy, and that are talking about what they do for their sleep and their recovery, or maybe they share a podcast with you that really impacts you, it gives the opportunity, it gives a why to people. It gives someone a why for their what, to go, okay, now I kind of want to feel good when I go do this thing. And maybe before doing jiu-jitsu, I just never cared how I felt. Now I care. And so then they start to do, enact change in their life or their habits to start to affect those things. So I've seen jiu-jitsu really have an effect on people that maybe didn't jive with like a CrossFit gym, or they didn't drive with going to a group fitness class, or they could never really figure out how to get the motivation to increase how much they walk in a day, or like start running or something, but they could figure out how to do jujitsu because it challenged them. It was something in a group setting that was motivating. There's an opportunity to learn. And then now, because of all that, they're starting to change other aspects of their life. And that's super special.
Yeah, and you don't, I mean, you see that with other disciplines, but I feel like jujitsu, people just get so obsessed with it. It has this addictive quality to it that makes
Yes.
people want to get better. And
Yeah.
then they do what you're saying, man. Like when I first started training, I dropped 65 pounds in 6 months
Damn.
because I changed my diet. I actually did the Gracie diet, and
Wow.
because that's just what I was hearing about because we were at like
But
that
that's
Gracie.
this what case in point, right? That's
Yeah.
exactly what I'm talking about. Is like where was that idea or motivation prior to training? For whatever
Yeah.
reason, it wasn't there. And then training changed that. It's so cool.
Yeah, it was a natural outcome, I think, of just
Yeah.
training so much. And yeah, man, I've seen it with a lot of other people too. I was just talking to some guy last week that I met at class, and he said that he'd been training for 6 months and he had also lost like 60 pounds or something.
So rad,
And
man.
it's I've heard it from a lot of people, and I think that jujitsu really can change the world, man. But I wanted to segue that into our next question, which is just how do you feel jujitsu can change the world? Martial arts becoming a lot more popular these days. Like, what do you think is the potential here? Where do you think that this could go?
I think that jujitsu gives people an opportunity more than anything to learn a little bit more about who they are. And I'm not convinced that that's 100% unique to jujitsu. I think other things that are physical can also do that. But because jujitsu, you can train at a high intensity with a lot less risk than, for example, sparring. Right? Like if you're going to get into striking and you go to a hard sparring day, you're going to find out really quickly if that's your jam or not. And for probably 98% of the population, they don't like getting hit in the head. They're not going to come back to that. But jujitsu does give an opportunity for someone to experience high intensity, essentially simulated combat to the whatever high end of their potential intensity that they can put out in a given day. And then you can repeat that within the sessions multiple times. Of course, you're going to, I'm sure we've been training, you get a black eye, you get a split lip, you get an elbow to the head, you get a knee to the head. All these accidents happen when you're training, but the large majority of the time it's spent, you can go pretty hard. And for the most part, you're not going to get hurt. So that really opens the top of the funnel for people that would otherwise not get involved in self-defense in anything martial arts based because they don't want to get hit. And who knows, maybe they come in and they start there and then they do get really interested in striking or in some other form. But I think it really has the power to change people's minds because of how many people it can welcome in. Like the old phrase jujitsu is for everybody. It kind of is for everybody. And you see that every day when you go on the mats. MMA is not for everybody. That's for sure, right? It is gnarly. There are badass people in jiu-jitsu. Everyone's a dog in MMA. Period. There's no one that is training at a in an actual combat gym where they're getting ready for their first fight that's not a complete dog. And then there's ranges of that. But jiu-jitsu, you can have someone who works a full-time job with zero aspirations of going anywhere in combat sports, and they can train 6 days a week really hard. That has the power, I think, to impact a huge amount of people. On the other side of this is it can teach you confidence that you otherwise don't have. You see in academies, people's self-confidence change on the spot. It's beautiful, and it's very rare to see this happen in people. But you can see someone come in on their first day, they're kind of head down, shoulders forward, just like not really knowing where they are in the world. And 6 months later, they can be a tall, standing, shoulders back, confident person. That is fantastic. And I don't know what other sports or activities really provide that to people. And if you can give people confidence and self worth, that fucking changes the world.
It's beautifully said. Beautifully said.
Yeah.
I was thinking today about like if I were to hypothetically put a billboard up of, like an advertisement that I could show to the whole world, be like jujitsu,
Yeah.
be like confidence, community, and something else. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out the
Yeah.
something else, but I feel like it gives these.
Maybe just that confidence, community, and something else.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
That'll be the first sign for jujitsu outlet when we
Yeah.
open. But yeah, community confidence is something else. That's
Because
beautiful.
everyone's gonna get something else from it. You don't know what it is, you know?
Bed Bath and
That's good.
Beyond.
Yeah, exactly. Bed Bath and Beyond of combat sports.
Community confidence and beyond. But dude, you
Yep.
said that so beautifully. I think you're so right, man. Like it's crazy because even with judo or wrestling or these other grappling arts, you can't necessarily go 100% all the time. Like I'm a brown belt in judo
Yeah.
and I did judo all through college, and judo is a lot of fun and I love it. And I still try to practice judo like at jiu-jitsu very, very mindfully, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
But like judo is really hard. Like I don't even know if I would be able to go and train judo, full time right now because of
Right.
just how my body is right now. I'm 31. Like for me, like I feel beat up after jujitsu. I mean, I'm definitely not getting old. Like you and me are kind of in the prime of our lives, but
Yeah.
I'm definitely not 22, if that makes sense. Like when I was
Yeah.
22, I was like, oh yeah, judo all day, no problem.
Yep.
But now, like I would just feel like my back was gonna explode, and
Yep.
if that makes sense, or my knees don't really want to do judo for 5 days
It
a week.
sucks, man. I like I hate admitting it, and I don't even want to get stuck on the tangent of like age, but it is hard to hear those words come out of my mouth. But you have to respect it, man. You have to respect your
Yeah,
body, and like I want to be doing this when I'm Hicks and Helio. I want to be on the mats then. I have zero desire to stop, and part of that trajectory, that type of longevity, you have to respect yourself. I mean, it's crazy. Like you see, like Justin Flores, he trains hard as hell, but that guy respects his body a lot, and he
right.
does a lot to take care of it. Travis Stevens trains hard as hell, does a lot to respect his body. So
Yeah,
like you can have both, but you really do have to respect it. You have to respect your body.
yeah. For me, something, and this is just like a little tangent on this, but I implemented what Dr. Roddy Ferguson recommended on a podcast I listened to with him. If you don't know him, he's super successful.
Yeah.
He's a super successful coach. He was a judo Olympian, an ADCC competitor, and he's a
Damn.
jiu-jitsu black belt. But he recommended for especially like guys a little older to take 2 rest days every week, and that's been game changer for me. Is taking 2 rest days instead of one. And so now every Tuesday, Friday is rest days for me. And then I try to go really hard the other 5 days, if that makes sense. But that for me has helped a lot because before I was doing that, I just felt like I just couldn't recover, if that makes
Dude,
sense.
I
Because I'm
was
not
like,
heroic. Let the record show I'm not
yeah.
juicing the gills.
It's not worth it to me. I mean, the downside to I was joking with someone about this the other day. I was like, I kind of wish at one point I did just to see what was possible. But like the
Freak is
effects
over.
on your longevity, like I care about living long and enjoying all the years that I get to live long. So
Right.
I'm not trying to juice because that shit's bad for you, man. Straight up. Like
Yeah.
look at any bodybuilder from the 80s that are older. They're all fucking they're in horrible shape, dude.
A lot of
If
them are
they can
passing
even
away.
walk, they're done.
Oh,
So it's
yeah.
such a I really laugh at when people are doing gear and they're hobbyists. I just like nothing makes less sense to me than that.
Yeah.
On the IBJJF side, you're a non-professional athlete in a sport that doesn't pay you and you're paying to be in it.
Right.
And if you don't juice and the other guy does, the risk that you're putting yourself at is insane. If a guy on gear gets a hold of your ankle and he twists it and blows your knee in half, you might never have a career again. So I'm not condoning the use of steroids in IBJJF, but the IBJJF needs to rethink how they incentivize their athletes to not do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I
That's
agree.
a whole other tangent. I mean,
Yeah.
steroids in this, it does make for an exciting final.
Yeah. I think that it'll come with more money, as more money and more
Yeah,
attention comes into jujitsu. Because the thing is, it's just so expensive. Like they just simply,
that's what
from
I'm
what I
saying.
understand, just don't have the money to do it
Yeah,
necessarily. But they will because it's growing. The sport is getting a lot more attention. a lot more people are coming to jiu-jitsu, and those people, a lot of them have money because a lot of them have jobs, and a lot of them are doctors or lawyers or entrepreneurs. That's the other thing, man. A lot of really successful people are joining jiu-jitsu right now. Like my Facebook
That's
feed
so
is full
crazy.
of like
Yeah.
entrepreneurs and business people I follow who are all like signing up and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's Tom Hardy. I think he started something,
I think
and I don't know.
I
I don't
feel
know.
like that it's funny because you had like there's two types of celebrities, and Tom Hardy's a very unique one. But you have celebrities that do jujitsu and kind of talk about it sometimes, but most of them do it in a way where they're not exposed to the public. So they're doing privates. They're moving up in the belts privately, but it's like one-on-one coach, like Russell Brand, right? Russell Brand's a purple belt, but I don't think Russell Brand's trained with another person outside of his sensei in maybe forever, right? For risk of injury, who knows? Maybe someone's got bad blood and they want to fuck you up. Then you
Yeah,
got guys like Tom Hardy, who's like, I'm just going to do this thing, which is so
yeah,
badass. And then even Mark Zuckerberg, and
that's
if you listen to him talk about it, he's it's not that unstomachable. Like he's very clearly a student of jujitsu and he's interested and he's learning. This is going to do an insane thing for two different industries, like the entertainment kind of people with a lot of disposable time outside of their craft, like actors, actresses, musicians that we've already seen, people like James Maynard, what's his name? Lead singer Tool. Maynard Keenan.
yeah. I mean,
James
like, yeah,
Maynard Keenan, and then Dave Mustaine. So you have musicians doing it, but then you're also going to get people in the tech world who now have a ton of cash and disposable time to do this. Someone like Zuckerberg, right? He's a CEO who runs freaking Facebook, Instagram,
yeah.
WhatsApp, and he's
One
doing
of the
it.
wealthiest guys in history.
You're going to see a lot more people see that and go, "Oh, I think I could do that too."
Yes. And this is getting into a tangent, but I'm going to take us there. But it's
Yeah.
actually like almost creating like a resurgence of how things used to be back in the medieval period, where the wealthy classes oftentimes occupied their times with physical training. And that's
Mm.
like what they did. They raised their kids like they did wrestling and stuff like that. Like, they brought up their kids with private wrestling instructors and private fitness coaches. Like all this stuff that we do is not new. Like they were doing it back
Yeah.
in Rome. Like this is how the aristocratic people lived their lives. They would go spending their days training, doing archery, going hunting, wrestling, like working out. Like they didn't have Netflix. You know what I'm saying? Like they didn't have jobs. So they did stuff like this, and it's almost creating that resurgence. And dude, with artificial intelligence going to be displacing a lot of the workforce and creating a lot of different kind of shakeups in the economy, we're going to find a lot of people are going to have more time. Like not just the wealthy class, but just average Joe is going to start to have more time. And I hope that we're going to see more of a return to that. But
I think we'll definitely see a lot of people
crazy.
take up jujitsu in the years to come. I guess the only thing worth saying though is I think when you train jujitsu, it's easy to start to think that jujitsu is self defense and that jujitsu works anywhere. And don't get it twisted. Like there's a difference between
Yep.
sitting on your butt, slapping hands with someone that you trust and know, and then tapping when something goes south or you make a mistake. There's a difference between that and a street fight. There's a big difference. And when anything goes, there are principles in jujitsu and in combatives and self defense that are very useful. But if you're not training them or you don't understand them, then jujitsu is not going to save you if you don't know how to use it the right way. And I think that that's one thing I think is really important. The more I talk to people that have been, like doing this for a long time or they've been around since the early days is with social media and things spreading for views and likes and traction, there's an incentive to make things cool. And when things get cool, sometimes they can drift away from function. And I think that that's just an important thing to think about if you're a jiu-jitsu practitioner while you're on the mats is like a good example of this is one time one of our black belts just brought a toy knife, like a plastic knife. And when we rolled, he set it like 2 feet away from us. And he said, we're going to roll, but whoever gets the knife first wins and we reset. And just that single thing, yeah, I've been training jiu-jitsu 5 years, completely fucked me up. It flipped everything I knew on its head because now with this objective that again, even in a trusted setting where I know the guy, it completely changed everything that I thought about. 'Cause now I'm thinking about getting stabbed, right? I'm not just thinking about getting passed or passing. And I think that that's a really important thing as more and more people get involved in jiu-jitsu is to not get it twisted that just because you're practicing doesn't mean you're proficient at self-defense or de-escalation or the ability to get away. And understanding violence in that context is super important for everybody.
Yep, it's completely different. And like one of the best pieces of self-defense advice I've ever gotten is just to avoid getting into bad situations. I
Straight
mean, that's
up.
really it, man. Like the best
Yeah.
self-defense you can have. I think about this a lot. How the best self-defense you can have, the best way that jujitsu will keep you safe is by if you go to jujitsu class on a Friday night instead of going to the bar. Like that's really it, to be honest. Like that's
Yeah,
how it's going to protect you because
I
if you
like
just
that.
don't put yourself in that situation, if you just stop going to the club and you stop hanging out with loser friends who like to drink all the time and cause problems, then that's gonna do a lot. That's gonna do way
Yeah.
more than you taking a Muay Thai class or a
Yeah.
Krav Maga or some
It
shit.
it it goes back to your point, the like, the more you know, the less you know. And every day that I leave jujitsu, the more that I feel like I just want to stay as far away from any kind of altercation as possible because
Yeah,
I don't know who they are. I don't know what they have. I don't know, I haven't done an assessment of the environment. I don't know what's nearby. Are there rocks? Are there a loose hammer? I don't know. Uh,
yeah,
and I don't know what they're, especially here in Southern California, like the chances that the person you're standing in front of trains somewhere is like super high.
yeah,
So I'm not, it just makes me want to, if I ever feel angry or whatever, or I need to go and like put in a hard session, go do it on the mats.
yeah,
And especially in those moments where you feel like you need to like kind of air out the laundry, that's when I get my ass kicked the most. It's so
yeah.
funny.
Yeah, I think I forget where I heard it. I think it was on Joe Rogan's podcast, but this guy was telling a story about how he got into a road rage incident with someone, and this guy he shot in for a double leg, and the guy telling the story shot for a double leg, and the other guy
Yeah.
sprawled and started to go for a guillotine. And then they had like this epic little round, and then like a
Yeah.
minute in, they were like, "Wait, do you train?" And they found out that not only did they both train jujitsu, but they were
Yeah.
actually headed to the same open mat.
Oh.
They were driving to the same
Dude, we
open.
had one of the guys who teaches or he used to teach boxing um at our academy. He was like a Golden Gloves champion. He was
Yeah,
an amateur boxer. And dude, some guy, like we're kind of right off a freeway exit. So you get off the freeway and you go down this road and then into the like little commercial parking spot. And this guy like tailgated him, followed him in. So two things. One, he didn't know that he's tailgating a former Golden Gloves boxer, right? Two, he doesn't know that he's tailgating him into the parking lot of the Jiu-Jitsu Academy where the Golden Gloves boxer is going to train, right? So inside of this window, I mean, if need be, yell help, and like 25 people are going to come out that all train Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and striking. So they get in the parking lot, and the guy gets out of his car, literally walks up to the window, and he's like, "Hey, motherfucker, get out of the car!" And our instructor gets out, and this was something that I learned like very early in striking is they say like, "Hey, come here and like stand in front of me like you're gonna like get into it with me." And I'd stand in there, and he goes, "Look down," and I look down, and both my feet are completely square. And he's like, "If you ever stood in front of me like that, you would be on your ass so fast because you're not in the stance that's ready to receive any kind of punch, right?" So he gets out of the car, and the guy's standing square footed right in front of me. He's like, "You piece of shit, you cut me off, blah blah." And he just stood back into his boxing step, and he's like, "Listen, this is exactly how this is going to go." And he basically just like told him one, where he was, where the academy was, who was inside, and then his history, and then exactly what he was going to like basically hit him with. And the guy just had this moment where you could tell that he wanted to like be tough, but he also was realizing how bad of a situation he was in. And he was like, just kind of put his hands up and he's like, "Sorry, man." And he got in his car and rolled away. And you just don't know. You don't know. who the
Yeah.
person is that you're angry at, that you're yelling at in line, that you're cutting off on the freeway, whatever it is. It's just not worth it.
Yeah. It's not. 1,000%. It's not. And I've just begun to think, man, like if we hypothetically could get everyone training, I think that it could create something where it's like, everyone has a gun sort of scenario where you could create a more polite society. But at the end of the day, I feel like it's probably impossible to get every single human on earth to train jujitsu.
Definitely. Definitely
Probably can
impossible.
get,
Yeah.
but I think that we can get a majority. I think that 50% is possible. I think that if we got 50%, we'd have a very different world. Not necessarily that they would all become black belts, but like that they could train at least once and have that experience, the experience that you talked about earlier, where they get humbled, they get checked, maybe they learn a couple things about self-defense, and they're a better person because of it. I think if
I
we can
think
just
like
get that, such a better world.
if you want to just like decrease fights on college campuses, just have every dude take a jiu-jitsu class at their first day of their freshman year. That would solve a lot of problems, I feel like.
Yeah, you're right, man. Dude, well, we got to wrap this up, but
Yeah.
is there anything else that you wanted to share with us, or just anything else on your heart today?
No, man, I'm glad people are listening to podcasts like this. I'm glad there are podcasts like this that are asking these kind of questions and talking about jiu-jitsu. It's everyone has a different entrance point into it, and I think that the more of these that are out there and the more doorways there are that people can knock on, the better, because it will give people the opportunity to give it a shot for the first time. Whether it's your podcast or my podcast or just a friend in your circle that's doing it that you're like curious about, but you've never gone in and done a class. I hope that people take that chance, because it is a chance that can completely change your life. And you don't have to become competitive, right? But it can change the way that you think about the world. And I almost I laugh all the time because I'm not a religious person, but I feel like in a way I kind of treat jujitsu like gospel,
Yeah,
like everyone needs to do it, and I'm always shouting it from the rooftops. But that's because it had a big impact on my life, and
yeah,
it does change the way that I carry my head on a day-to-day basis, and it makes me hold a lot of respect for different people, and especially people that have committed much, much more time than I have in this life to it. And I
yeah,
think those are the people that we really have to thank, are the people that were doing this way before social media even existed, that just put jujitsu on their back, did it in garages, got other people involved, trained the small guy to beat the big guy, all that kind of stuff. Like, we owe everything to them. So shout out
yeah,
to, and that's a laundry list of people. So if you know who you are, if you're in that bundle.
yeah. Yeah, man, for real. Like, I love what you said, because I used to be a fundamentalist Christian back in the day when I was growing up, and I
Wow.
used to be super evangelical. It's something I talk about a
Yeah.
lot on other podcasts beyond Homo Sapien. But
Yeah.
these days, I'm not a hardcore fundamentalist. But it's funny because the same vocabulary that I used to use about Jesus and about getting people to church is the
Yeah.
exact same way that I feel about jujitsu. And literally, that when it's funny that you said that, because when you were talking, I was thinking in my head, I was like, man, he sounds just like when I used to
Great.
tell people
Great.
to come to church. But no, but it's true,
Yeah.
because I used to be like, man, if I could just get them to one day at church,
Yeah.
their whole lives would be changed forever by the Holy Spirit. But now I'm just
Maybe
like, oh,
I don't know. Maybe there's
uh,
something there's something just fundamental about the human experience where, like, you look for, it doesn't have to be religion, right? But you look for a meaningful experience like that within community. Even if,
uh,
I identify as a pretty like independent person, I'm totally fine on my own. I can go on a road trip by myself and have a totally fine time, travel alone. But there is something to be said, especially post COVID, when so much was shut down and so much community. I'm very grateful to have had my fiance during that time where, we got to spend a lot of time with each other when you couldn't. And on the other side of that, being able to go into jujitsu, and maybe like your lives aren't super intertwined, like maybe you're not going and having dinner with people at your academy or hanging out on the weekends, but you go there and you just leave everything at the door, and you get to check into this experience of getting better, like physically and mentally, with other people. And maybe
right.
that's what we're drawn towards. And so it could be, maybe people find that in a church. Maybe they find it in playing pickleball. Maybe they find it in jujitsu. It's nice to be surrounded by that kind of community where you're all getting better at something together.
Right. Yeah, and I think that there's something instinctual, something almost like in our DNA that says that we
Yep.
need this. We need to be a community together working towards a mission or towards a
Yep.
purpose of some sort. And it's almost like what you're saying is what we're really saying is whatever mission it is we feel called to do, we're really saying we want the rest of humanity to come along with us and do that
Right.
mission, you know, in
Right.
a sense. And you know, and I think that the cry of the jiu-jitsu person is probably really this, you know, the same as the religious person in a sense.
Yeah.
Like, if only I could get
Yeah.
the whole world believing what I believe, and everything
So
would be
funny.
resolved. But no,
Yep.
but I really think that jujitsu, like, it's real. I think that's why it's so good, is because there's no dogma. It's not a belief
Totally.
system. It's a thing.
Totally.
It's a
Yep.
physical activity. It's not.
Yeah.
There's no speaking to it. That's what's great. Like when your head coach rolls you up in a cradle and, you know, pops your neck a certain way, like, he's not talking. There's no words that are coming, but he's giving
Well,
you
I
a
think in that,
he's
I
giving you an
do
ego
think that
better than a pastor, you know?
there's something where, like, I feel like in general, especially, well, for the history of humanity, but especially now, like, people are very interested in finding truth in things. And I feel like that's one underlying theme of jujitsu that's very powerful, is that there's no bullshit. Like, okay, if you're competing and the ref penalizes you or disqualifies you because you're knee reaping, but you weren't really reaping and it just looked that way, that's kind of not truthful, right? That's annoying. But when you go in and you train in the academy and you tap out, you didn't tap out because you're lying about the submission. You tapped because it was true. The submission was real. It was there. It happened. And you couldn't do anything about it. Period. There's not that many situations that you experience in your day to day that are that cut and dry. That's a green light or a red light. It's just, there aren't that many. And so I think that that's something that connects with people training, is that it gives you something truthful in your life that you can't lie about. It's kind of like strength training. Like, you set the barbell up and you put 225 pounds on it. If you can't lift it, you can't lift it. That's just what's up. So it's another one of those experiences that is very black and white. It is real. And so when you get those experiences, it's kind of refreshing to go in and feel something. It's truthful and it's happening to you. That's powerful.
It's almost like life and death itself. It just is.
Yeah. I mean, it's so, and this is what I was saying earlier. It's so easy to get like overly deep and like philosophical about jujitsu. And then I think about it and I'm like, it's a bunch of like mid-30s people in pajamas rolling around on the floor.
Trying to beat each other up and usually
Yeah,
failing to do so.
exactly. Yeah.
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 But I think that that's what's so crazy about it, because, like, I've thought about it a lot, because the whole theme of this show really is that jujitsu can save the world and heal everyone's mental health and cure all the world's problems. And really what we're trying to say is that, yes, that rolling around on the ground in your pajamas with a bunch of your buddies trying to strangle each other can actually, like, reverse the effects of depression or PTSD, or, you know,
Yeah,
possibly so that your entire
I
life will change. It's
I
crazy.
I personally am a little cautious on those ideas, just in that I think it's important to draw a distinction that if you are suffering from depression and it is a chemical imbalance in your brain, and that is decided by like you and a neurologist, you need that help. And that help should be available to you, one, and you should follow the right steps to remedy that, because jujitsu does have the power, or anything physical has the power to change brain chemistry, release endorphins, and do positive things for you and change the way that you see the world. But there are people that truly do suffer from chemical imbalances, and that's really sad. And I mean, I personally don't know what it's like on a personal experience level, but I know people that do. And I get frustrated when I hear that the solution's like overly simple. I think those people should also train jujitsu in addition to taking whatever, medications they have to. But I just think it's important on the mental health discussion to always respect that in some cases people really do need that like Western medicine help.
It's true. It's true. And again, I'm not trying to be the diagnosis of all or the diagnosiser of all ailments. Definitely making the most broad statement of all time. But yes, absolutely. Speak with your professional. But something that I've found by talking to experts on this show, like my friend Musin Corbry, who is studying neuroscience, he's actually coming back on the show next week to talk more about this. But what they're actually finding, I think Johns Hopkins, or just I'm actually interviewing him about this study. I forget the actual name of it, but they just released this study about how basically the effects of exercise in general are just as good as a lot of the medicines that are being prescribed. And that it's like this big breakthrough that they're finding that it actually can reverse a lot of these things. So if you do have a chemical imbalance, there is that potential. And now, obviously, I don't know everything. That's why I'm interviewing this guy. But what I'm saying is, I think what they're finding more and more and more is that there is that potential, that it might be possible that exercise or something like this could affect or could help to reshape people's brains in that way. But obviously, if you are suffering from some sort of extreme thing, definitely talk to a professional. In fact, on every single show, I put a link down to Talkspace, which is the therapy service that helped me back when I was
I love
having
that.
sex every day. So definitely go talk to someone on Talkspace if you need to. But yeah,
shameless plug.
Shameless plug. Well, I'm actually not an affiliate, so it's not even a shameless plug. I just like.
Well, they should make you an affiliate.
No, they should. I think that their affiliate program, though, is I would just get more free therapy, which is cool. I'm down.
Hey, that shout out therapy too. I think it's really good for people to be able to talk to people. You know, when you have someone that's not involved in your life, it's powerful. It's very different than talking to a good friend. You know.
Yes. I love it because we'll talk about this for just a second. I know I said we got to wrap it up like 10 minutes ago, but I really have enjoyed.
I could talk.
You should start a podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
But dude, it's like I just think that so often these days people are missing this sort of stuff. That they're missing that they need something to push them outside of their mental frame or whatever it is. But dude, I know that we got to wrap this up, but I just wanted to say, like, can you tell us a little bit more about your podcast? And let's say if someone's listening to this and they want to hear more of what you have to say, can you tell us a little bit more about your show and just maybe some of your big takeaways you've had lately?
Yeah. So the show's the Mayn Idea. It's like my last name. So it's MAY like yellow, N like Nancy, Mayn Idea. And I just sit down. I changed the structure a little bit about 20 episodes ago to really focus on martial arts. And so the underlying theme is jiu-jitsu in almost every episode, but it touches on athletes, so legends in the sport, people like Wagner and Rocha. It touches on professionals in business that happen to also do jiu-jitsu, and we talk about the crossovers there a lot. And really just diving into what makes this art form so special. Obviously, I love it. You know, I can talk about this all day, but it's been fascinating to sit down with some of the people that have been involved with this for so long. And I think hearing their wisdom and learning about it is just really enriching. Like I spoke with Chris Burns yesterday, who's one of the only people to still train with Hickson. He trains with Hickson every month, and he's one of like two. And he's been doing jiu-jitsu forever. He's had an insane story. And he was like one of the most real people I've ever talked to. Absolutely no BS. And through this show, being able to share those experiences with people and really sit down with them like this, I absolutely love it. Because I think that conversation is so powerful. And it has the opportunity to change the world. I really believe that. And it gives you a chance to hear things that you might not agree with and think about them and then respond and then learn together. You can learn from people, you can listen, and then you can get your mind changed or you can change minds. And I think that that is so powerful. And it's something that I felt like for a while we got away from. And maybe that's a general statement, right? And that was like a call to action for me. But I really just love getting to spend an hour and a half with someone. It's awesome. I mean, most people don't spend an hour and a half talking one-on-one with no distractions to their best friends, family members, anything. And to have the privilege to be able to sit down with some of the greatest people in jiu-jitsu and talk to them, it like means the world. So conversations like this, I absolutely love it. And so that's really the underlying theme of the show.
I love it, man. And we need more of that stuff, more authentic conversation, more real connection, and more education. So thank you, man, for doing it.
1000%.
Thank you, brother. Well, hey, if you're listening to this, go check out the Mayn Idea on YouTube, on Apple, on Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And I'll put links down to everything below in the show notes.
Awesome.
Check it out. Abe Maynard, thank you so much for coming on the show, brother.
Thank you, Paul. I really appreciate it, man. It's been a pleasure.
Hell yeah, dude.